Okay, let's unpack this. We are diving into a concept that seems, well, almost too basic. Just two things, right? Water and ginger. So simple. But the sources you've shared, they really reveal this fascinating, pretty complex biochemical story underneath. Honestly, if you think ginger water is just, for settling your stomach after a big meal, you are about to discover a whole massive layer of hidden metabolic and inflammatory power. Yeah, so our mission in this deep dive, it isn't really about recipes or anything like that. It's to understand the mechanism. How does ginger water actually work? We want to grasp how it acts as this sophisticated biological modulator, that's the key word, rather than just a simple fix. And we're focusing on three key areas: inflammation, but like nuanced management; then insulin sensitivity, which is huge; and finally, optimizing just fundamental digestive health.
And we absolutely have to start with the ginger itself, the raw material. Because look, if the foundation isn't good, then, well, everything else kind of falls apart, doesn't it? So before we even get to the water, we need to define ginger. It's technically a rhizome.
A rhizome, right? Not actually a root.
Exactly. It's the underground stem. And, why does that even matter? Well, because the effectiveness, the actual concentration of the active compounds, it's entirely dependent on the quality and the richness of the soil it grew in.
Ah, okay. So not just is it fresh, but literally the mineral density, the environment it came from.
Precisely. Think of it like this. If that rhizome grew in land that's been, overfarmed, maybe it's dry, depleted of minerals, then the ginger itself will be kind of insipid, dry, nutrient empty. You'll basically get zero measurable biological benefit from it. So if you skip that step, finding high quality, really potent, mineral-rich ginger, you might just think, oh, ginger water doesn't work.
Yeah.
When the real failure is right at the source. Quality is absolutely step one, non-negotiable.
Yeah. Okay. So once we've sourced this top-tier, really robust rhizome, how do we actually unlock its power? Because I've definitely just tossed a slice into a cold water bottle before and thought, yeah, that's probably doing something.
Yeah.
The sources say that's just fundamentally wrong.
It is fundamentally wrong.
Yeah.
To get those beneficial compounds out, you need energy. Heat energy. You absolutely must heat the water. What we're doing is creating an infusion. And that infusion process, it needs that thermal energy to really expose and extract the good stuff. What we call the phenolic compounds, those powerful active molecules, and the essential oils too.
Can you maybe elaborate a bit on why they need heat? Are they like locked inside the plant cells or something?
Exactly that. They're bound up within the physical structure of the rhizome. The heat acts like a solvent, basically, and a key. It breaks down those bonds. So the active components, things like gingerols and shogaols, can actually transfer into the water and become, bioavailable to your system. If the water's cold, you're mostly just drinking ginger-flavored water. But if it's a proper hot infusion, now you're drinking a medicinal extract. That's the difference.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
Where you were trying to unlock the biochemistry, not just the taste.
Yeah.
And you also mentioned something about dosage. A warning. Since we are dealing with a potent extract now, I guess moderation is important.
Absolutely. Yeah, the sources definitely caution against going overboard. We're looking for something consistent, something reasonable for, say, daily consumption. Think maybe 1 or 2 slices, about the size of a coin, or if you grate it, maybe half a teaspoon, something like that. We want consistent modulation. That's the goal, not like one massive hit that could actually cause stomach upset or other issues. The real power here is in the consistency, day after day, not a huge quantity all at once.
Okay, this idea of careful balance modulation, not overload, that brings us right into the most, well, I found it the most fascinating part of the research, how ginger actually manages inflammation. And the experts in your material, they're very specific about using that word modular instead of just lower or stop. Why is that distinction so critical?
Yeah, what's really fascinating here is getting what inflammation is. It gets such a bad rap because, well, it hurts, right? It's uncomfortable. But fundamentally, it is a necessary physiological process. It's absolutely crucial. It's the body's first response system, really. It paves the way for repair, for regeneration, for deep cellular healing. If you look at the sort of standard repair cycle, it needs that initial phase of pain and inflammation that's followed by an active inflammatory stage, ideally lasting maybe a few weeks. And then the body can transition into the withdrawal phase and the actual repair work.
Okay, so if I pop a powerful anti-inflammatory drug, say ibuprofen or something, I stop the pain right away, sure.
Yeah.
But what's the hidden cost physiologically?
Well, the potential cost is pretty significant. You risk stopping that whole repair cycle dead in its tracks. Traditional pharmacological anti-inflammatories, they often work by aggressively stopping or at least detaining that inflammation process. And yeah, you get immediate relief, which feels good. But you risk perpetuating the underlying pathology because you halt that necessary regenerative stage. You essentially shut down the signal that says, okay, time to fix this tissue now.
Wow. Okay. So we could be trading short-term comfort for potentially preventing real long-term healing.
Yeah.
Sobering. So how does ginger navigate this? How does it work without just shutting down the whole signal?
Ginger uses a totally different approach, a different roadmap, if you will. You could compare it to something else known to help with inflammation, like omega-3 fatty acids, EPA and DHA. Omega-3s, they work, but they work slowly. It can take, weeks for them to actually get incorporated into your cell membranes before you feel the benefits. Ginger doesn't really work on the cell membrane like that. Its action is different.
So what is its target then?
Its target is deeper inside the metabolic communication network. It acts very specifically on a molecule called COX-2. That's cyclooxygenase 2. COX-2 is a really key chemical messenger in that whole inflammatory pathway. See, when COX-2 gets activated, it starts producing other molecules called prostaglandins. And prostaglandins are basically the command signals for inflammation, for pain, for fever.
Okay, COX-2, prostaglandins.
Yes.
Sounds a bit technical. Can we simplify that role? What are they doing?
Yeah, let's try. Think of COX-2 maybe as a traffic controller at an intersection. And the prostaglandins are like the green light signal. So when you have an injury or an issue, the traffic controller, COX-2, turns the light green prostaglandins, allowing all the inflammatory cells and processes to rush to the site. Now, many pharmaceutical drugs, they try to just violently grab the traffic controller and shut down the entire intersection, stop everything. Ginger's action is much more, let's say, subtle. It modulates the controller. It effectively tells the metabolism, your body systems, to manage the inflammation coherently and calmly. That's the language the sources use. So it's not slamming on the brakes. It's more like smoothly directing the traffic towards the resolution, towards that repair stage. It's giving the body this intelligent, precise feedback on how to manage its own essential process, leading to actual resolution, not just suppression.
That is a really phenomenal distinction. Directing traffic versus just shutting down the whole road.
I like that.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me. Moving from that deep systemic signaling to specific body systems, starting with the metabolism. The sources you looked at, they highlight this massive benefit related to insulin. Apparently, ginger helps with the resensitization of insulin.
Yeah.
Which sounds incredibly profound, especially for anyone dealing with, prediabetes, insulin resistance, even full-blown type 2 diabetes.
Absolutely. And we have to connect this to the root causes, right? Modern life. It's often characterized by diets high in refined foods, sure, but also, crucially, chronic, persistent high cortisol levels because of stress. Constant stress, that really disrupts our body's basic ability to use glucose properly, efficiently. When cortisol is always high, the body thinks it's under constant threat, so it just keeps flooding the system with glucose for energy.
Right. And when the system is perpetually flooded like that, the cells eventually just stop listening to the insulin signal. That's insulin resistance, isn't it?
Exactly. They become resistant. Ginger seems to help restore that sensitivity by helping to calm down the overall inflammatory load and optimize those metabolic signals. It allows the cells to start kind of listening to insulin again, which helps bring glucose management back into a more balanced, healthier state. It's a really core piece of metabolic cleanup.
Okay, now let's connect this over to digestion, specifically the upper part, the stomach. I mean, everyone knows ginger is good for stomach issues, right? Nausea, things like that. But your sources suggest it works more by improving the actual mechanics, not just soothing.
That's right, yeah. The stomach is often just thought of as this passive holding tank for food. It's not. It has its own motility. It actively moves, it contracts, it chews the food with strong muscle actions, it churns everything together with those necessary acidic juices before passing it along.
And why is that movement, that gastric motility, why is that so critical?
Yeah. Well, if that motility slows down, if the stomach isn't churning effectively, food just sits there too long. It can start to ferment, maybe back up, and that leads directly to those classic symptoms people experience. Acidity, maybe gastritis, reflux, that feeling of just slow, heavy digestion. Ginger helps stimulate that movement, helps ensure the food gets properly processed before it moves on to the small intestine, the duodenum. That's where all the vital nutrient absorption happens. So proper processing upstream is key for proper absorption downstream.
Okay, this brings us to a pretty stark warning that the sources included. It was about common treatments for these exact issues, acidity, reflux. They were incredibly blunt about antacids and especially proton pump inhibitors, PPIs.
Yes, the warning was quite severe, very strong language. The sources essentially state that the widespread, often long-term use of these acid-suppressing drugs, which are sometimes misnamed as gastric protectors, have reportedly, and quote loosely here, destroyed the integrity of the stomach, the digestive tube, and potentially even the joints.
Destroyed. Wow, that is a very strong claim. What's the proposed mechanism for that kind of damage, according to the material?
The mechanism they propose is actually simple, but potentially devastating. These drugs suppress necessary stomach acid. Your stomach needs strong acidity. It's crucial for breaking down food properly, for sterilizing bacteria and other pathogens coming in, and really importantly, for absorbing key minerals. Things like vitamin B12, iron, calcium. They need that acidic environment. So by constantly suppressing the acid, you create an environment where food isn't digested well, you can get bacterial overgrowth, and serious mineral deficiencies can develop over time. And that cascade of problems, they suggest, can eventually affect things like connective tissue and joints. So the implication is clear. Support the natural function, like ginger does with motility. Don't suppress the necessary tools, like acidity.
That really shifts the perspective, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so if we are using ginger specifically to help with digestion, when should we take it? What's the optimal timing?
Logically, yeah, for supporting that gastric motility, you'd want to take the infusion immediately after eating. That's when the stomach is starting its work, and it can be warm or cool. Even cold is fine for this purpose. It's about getting it in there when your digestive engine needs that bit of a boost.
But I remember reading a pretty strong caveat attached to this digestive benefit.
Oh, absolutely. The source was adamant about this. Ginger supports healthy function, yes, but it doesn't miraculously cancel out destructive habits. It's not magic. So if you're eating mindfully, choosing generally healthy foods, ginger will likely help optimize digestion. But if you finish your meal and then immediately pile on processed junk food, load up on sugar, drink a soda, well, the ginger infusion just isn't going to be able to overcome that kind of metabolic onslaught. It's an aid to good habits, not an antidote to a poor diet.
Right, okay. So if we circle back and connect this to the bigger picture again, thinking about that relationship between high cortisol, stress, systemic function, and this need for coherent repair, it seems to point towards our final optimal timing strategy.
Exactly. If we connect this all to the bigger picture, we need to look at the body's natural 24-hour cycle, the circadian rhythm. Cortisol, our main stress hormone, it's naturally highest during the day when the sun's up. That gives us energy, suppresses pain a bit, lets us be active and deal with daytime demands. But because of that, we really need to reserve the nighttime for system repair and cleanup. And this is critical. The body's primesh repair and regeneration tools, those prostaglandins we talked about, other inflammatory messengers involved in healing, they primarily activate when the sun goes down. They are essentially our nighttime cleaning and repair crew.
Okay, so by taking the ginger infusion at night, before bed perhaps, what exactly are we facilitating then?
We're helping the body perform that essential nighttime repair process more calmly and effectively. By reinforcing that coherent management of inflammation via the COX-2 pathway while you sleep, you're literally aiding that metabolic cleanup process overnight. The idea is you wake up with potentially better regulated glucose and insulin levels, having processed the day's physical and maybe even mental stresses more efficiently. Nighttime is really for systemic repair.
That makes the nighttime use case very clear, but the sources also made a strong argument for using it first thing in the morning, specifically for neurocognitive clarity, mental focus.
Yes, that's the other side of the coin. Taking a cooled infusion so you make it hot the night before, let it steep, then chill it, bro. Taking that first thing in the morning on an empty stomach seems to yield quite different results. The sources suggest it helps generate significant energy right down at the mitochondrial level, and it appears to improve nerve conduction, which translates subjectively into better mental clarity and focus.
Yeah, the source even shared that really compelling personal story about vision improvement, being able to read better. Why on earth would a ginger infusion improve someone's eyesight? That seems like a leap.
Well, it links directly back to the brain. The eyes were described in the material as basically a physiological prolongation or appendage of the brain. So if your vision is improving, it strongly suggests the ginger water is having a beneficial effect on the entire neurological system, the whole apparatus. It's pretty indicative that the morning infusion might be helping to resolve neuroinflammation, calming down inflammatory stress right at that neurocognitive level. It suggests the power of ginger is much more integrated, more systemic than maybe we first assume.
So what does this all mean? Let's try to tie it together. We've learned that ginger water, okay, when it's properly prepared, infused with heat, it acts as this potent biological signal. It modulates rather than just suppresses inflammation, specifically via that COX-2 pathway. It helps resensitize your body to insulin, which is fundamental for metabolic balance, and it offers clear timing benefits depending on your goal. Taking it at night seems best for systemic repair and cleanup, and taking it cooled first thing in the morning seems geared towards neurocognitive energy and clarity.
And this leads us to, I think, a really crucial final provocative thought that kind of ties the whole picture together beautifully. The source materials repeatedly emphasize the danger of living in a constant state of persistent stress. Being stuck in that permanent sympathetic nervous system state, the fight or flight mode. When an animal or human is stuck in attack mode constantly, the body literally cannot properly digest food. It can't maintain correct libido. It might not even be able to reproduce effectively. All the non-essential systems basically get down-regulated to prioritize immediate survival. So considering ginger water's really holistic mechanisms, its apparent ability to help manage stress-related cortisol issues, to gently direct repair processes, improve digestion, we really have to consider its potential deeper role. Could it be helping the body fundamentally shift out of that persistent state of emergency and back into a state of coherent healing, effective function, and just less stress? It goes way beyond just settling your stomach.
So the challenge for you, the listener, is maybe to try these different timings. Test out the night infusion. See if you notice deeper rest or repair. Try the morning infusion for that potential clarity boost. And just observe how your own body responds, how it shifts its state. That's a wrap on this deep dive.